Was it fun? Was today harder or easier than?
Harder.
Yeah, but I feel like this week as it goes on, it's just got fun, right? We're almost through the week. Today and tomorrow. I'm not mostly going platform, right? So we're almost there, and we get Monday off. It's really nice. Right? My kids were like, "We get a holiday." They went back this morning, and they were so cranky about it. It was awful. So I understand. It's been a long week, but we're like halfway there. And we get a nice break on Monday, which is happy and sad, right? It's nice to have the rest, but sad, right? I'm always sad when we're not here. So anyway, it's good to see you all again. We're gonna jump into our first topic today, which I think is a really interesting one. We'll spend a lot of time talking about like what is normal versus abnormal. But before we get there, I always like to do a couple of things, just like kind of a quick review. I'm gonna talk a little bit about taking notes and things like that. But before I do that, are there any like questions or anything lingering from last time? Anybody have any questions from the syllabus or anything from last class at the moment? I like to ask you questions then, just as a way to review. And I told you we would probably use this today. So if you have your phone or you have a tablet or a computer, we're going to do a Kahoot. If you don't have any of those things, maybe you can jump in with a neighbor and see if you can play together. But I'll put this up here. If you downloaded the app, it makes your life super easy. If not, you can go to kahoot.it and then you're going to put in a code and your name, and you get to pick a little character. Oh, we need the music too. That's the best part about Kahoot. I'll give you a few minutes to get logged in. It could be a spot. Anyway, I don't. Yeah, there we go. I didn't know either, so you're fine. Do you get to pick your little face, right? Your little character. Those are so cute. I love them. You struggle to get on, you can always hop on maybe with a neighbor. Well, a football helmet, I like that.
Oh, yeah.
I practiced this with my kids last night and they said it was boring. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, thanks guys, so sweet. I'll give you just another minute and then we'll go. And if you get kicked out at any point, I put the pin up here just so that it's up here.
Yeah. Look at that.
All right. Anybody else trying to join? Are we all good? If you haven't joined yet, the code's here. If you get kicked out, it's here. So what I'm going to ask you, I have a handful of questions about things from last time and just quick things to review from the syllabus or things I shared with you in the slides just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. You are awarded points based on speed and accuracy. So when you go to answer, you'll have 4 options and you'll pick the right colored one on your phone or tablet or computer or whatever. And so you want to be fast, but you want to be right. And there'll be a winner at the end of each round. And then there'll be 3 winners at the end. I brought more candy. I refilled, right? More candy. So if you win any of the rounds, or if you're one of the 3 at the end, you have to come get candy from me. But here we'll go through these. I think there's 10 or 11 questions. We'll move on. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna start really easy with this. Okay. Number 1, what is the name of this class? I'm just gonna give you 4 options. Sorry, it cuts it off a little bit. Excellent. You all got that correct. That's wonderful. If you didn't, I was going to assume it was error, right? You picked the wrong one. Always know what class you're in. Abnormal psychology. Perfect. Very nicely done. Starting very simple here. Let's see. Jasmine. Where's Jasmine? Excellent. Our current leader. Okay, next question. What is the best way to get a hold of me? Best way to contact me? Phone, email, office hours, I'm not sure. That was quick too. Nice. Email, yes. Email is always the fastest way to get a hold of me. Yeah. There isn't. I have tried so hard to do it. I've had 3 people come in and look at it, and there's no way. So I'll read these, but yeah, I can't do anything about it. They actually have to move it back, or move it forward rather, and they won't do it. So super obnoxious, I know. Trust me, it drives me nuts. But email, always the best way to get a hold of me. See? Annika, right? Nice job. Take her down, new leader. No, I'm just kidding. All right, next question. I have how many kids in total? 4, 7, 6. I helped you out. I didn't put 3, right? Totally not important for this class, right? But yes, 8 children in total. And those of you who came in, if you want to join us on Kahoot, I put the code up here. See you. Still in the lead, double candy, right? All right, next question. What is the name of our required textbook? Exploring Psychology and Modules, Guide to Abnormal Psych. Awesome. Fundamentals of Abnormal Psych. I love this. If I were to ever write a book for this class, I would so name it Abnormality in You, right? That would be the fun, like, that would be a fun name for a book. But Fundamentals of Abnormal Psych, how many of you have either ordered it or have it at this point? That's amazing. Nice job. If you don't have it yet, that's okay. If it's on its way or whatnot. But try and get that as soon as you can. Again, the older edition was also totally fine. Still in the lead. The competitive part of me is like, take her down. But the other part of me is happy. Okay, here we go. True or false? You should come to this class even if you weren't feeling well. True or false? Did anyone want to say true just to be snarky? Like I wouldn't have blamed you, right? Of course, false, right? Don't come if you're not feeling well. Whether it's COVID or just sickness, right? Always better to take care of yourself and get to feeling better. Still in the lead. Look at it. It's close though. It's close. Okay. Our exams will be taken in person, on Canvas, never on a third-party website. Right, on Canvas, right? So we won't be taking them in person, but they'll be on Canvas. Remember, on those days, you won't actually have to come. You'll have the whole day to take the exam, and you can use your notes in your book, so you should do quite well on them. Let's see where we're at. Still in the lead. Look at, I'll just give you the bag. Okay, next. If you miss an exam, which of the following is true about making it up? You can make it up anytime. You can make it up before the tests are graded, and then right, a little more split, right? So unless you contact me ahead of time, you can't make it up if you miss it, right? You have that whole day to take it, so make sure you plan for it. If something comes up, make sure you reach out to me. Again, as always, communicate with me if something's going on. Let's see. Oh, new leader, Ike. Where's Ike? Right over here. I'm looking around right there, right in front of me. All right. Number 8, attendance and participation are graded by Responding to questions in class, 10 random 10-point activities. A little more split, right? So 10 random 10-point activities. That index card that I'm going to collect from you later is the first one of those. I will never give you pop quizzes. That's so mean. Just showing up is fantastic. And please respond to questions, but those 10 random 10-point activities are going to be what gets you those points in the class. Okay. C M, right? New leader. Number 9. If you miss a participation exercise homework assignment, it can be submitted whenever for full points by email before the end of the class it was due, and then all right. Yeah. So if I give you a homework assignment, you can still email it to me before the end of the class session in which it was due. So again, if you're going to miss, make sure you reach out to me or another classmate. Oh, look, you have a little flame next to your name and everything. Very nice. All right. Next. Number 10. In this class, you will write how many papers divided into how many parts? 1 into 2 parts, 1 into 3 parts. All right, yeah, 1 into 3 parts, right? So you have that one diagnosis paper. Start thinking about a TV show character or a movie character that you might be interested in. There are so many of them, and we'll start talking about that in a couple of weeks. Still in the lead. Okay, last question. Totally not important, but just for fun. Who's my favorite football player? Okay, you're like, I know. This is also your test of football versus baseball knowledge, right? Informal. I'm sorry, Peyton Cooper Cup. All right, yeah, Brady, right? Nobody said Bellinger. That's good. That's a baseball player. Right, just in case. I swear I thought he was going to unretire one more time, but he didn't. What a shame. It's never too late, maybe next year. But okay, let's see where we're at for overall here at the end. So our top 3, 3rd place. All right, there's 3rd, 2nd. Yeah, the suspense. 1st. All right, so if you're one of these 3 or if you want any of the rounds, make sure you get candy from me at the end. We'll actually end up doing one more Kahoot later today. We don't use it very often, but today we'll use it twice. So you can close that for now. But are there any other questions at all about the syllabus? Anything else before we keep going, just to make sure? Hold on to it, right? It's a good document to have. You can also find it on Canvas if you lose it for some reason. One other thing I want to talk about before we jump in is taking notes. Now, this is totally up to you, right? But I would really love to recommend that you do take notes. Now, you don't need to write down what's on the slides because the slides are on Canvas. Okay, so the stuff that's on the slides, you don't have to stress about that, but it's the other stuff that you might want to write down. If I write something on the board, or if I say, hey, this will be an exam question, you could star it or circle it. If you have questions or thoughts, the stuff that I add beyond what's on the slide might be the things that are the most helpful, right? And if you feel like it's ever a little fast, remember that the lectures are recorded, so you can go back and watch them again. And the slides are on Canvas, so you have access to them at any time. And what a lot of people have kind of shared with me is I've seen over the years, a lot of people print the slides in like a format like this, where you can take notes on the side. Again, it's totally up to you at this point. I would imagine you know what works for you. I'm very much like a kinesthetic learner, so if I don't write it down, it's just gone for me. But when you're taking notes, not only are you listening to me, looking at the slides, but you're also writing it down. Okay, so that's 3 different methods of encoding information. People who take notes tend to hold on to the information longer, but it's up to you. I just would like to kind of make that suggestion, and you're welcome to use computers or laptops, tablets, whatever. You can use all of that to take. Yeah. Oh, it's totally up to you. Whatever works for you is fine. You're not ever turning them in or necessarily showing them to me. It's more just for your thing. So completely whatever works for you. So since you have your computer, it'd probably be the easiest way to go. And I do actually, is there anyone in here who would be willing to be a note taker? We have a couple of people who need a note taker. And if you wouldn't mind just touching base with me at the end, thank you. That'd be wonderful. And you get a little certificate at the end as well, saying that you did it, which is fantastic. The last thing I want to do is, since I'm suggesting you take notes, and I've said a few times that you should either reach out to me or a classmate if you miss, we tend to be creatures of habit. And I'm trying to think back to Monday, and I don't really remember, but I would be willing to bet that most of you sat in the same spot that you did last class or pretty close to. That tends to be how we are. So what I'd like you to do is find a few people around you and exchange either like an email or a phone number or social media, whatever you're comfortable sharing. If you miss a class, you can always email me, but your classmates are going to be your best resource for notes. You could ask them if there was homework. So find a few people around you, exchange whatever level of information you're comfortable with. That way you have people to read. If you miss a class. So I'll give you.
Don't get my phone number. It's. Your life insurance.
Okay. One.
You want my phone number?
No, my phone.
Yeah.
I'm looking for that.
Like, still have mine. You guys just post it. Okay.
It's on fire. You put a 3 instead of 6. What things are here? Yeah.
Yeah, it was so busy this morning on the road. Oh, yeah. Why did I want to get a few? Again, let me give you like one more minute, but yeah, so you two are great resources for each other.
Oh, I mean, this was fun.
All right, and you can always add more numbers or emails or whatever later, but at least you have somebody, or at least, you know, the 1 or 2 people to reach out to if you do miss. Of course, you can always contact me, but your classmates are a wonderful resource, especially for things like notes. And if you just want to find out what you missed, and remember the lectures again are recorded and posted on Canvas, so you have access to them as well. I put one more phone number up here, just because it's a good one to give you. If there's an emergency or something happens on campus, there's the campus security phone number. If it's an emergency, we're encouraged to call 911. But if it's something smaller, or if you need to get a hold of campus security for some reason, that's their phone number. If something happens to me, heaven forbid, like somebody call campus security or 911, right? Don't all just walk out and leave. Not that you would, right? Like if I trip and fall and hit my head on the chalkboard, I'm always afraid I'll do that. That's my like before the first night anxiety that I'll trip and fall and like knock myself out, right? Hopefully that will never happen, but here's campus security if you should need that. Otherwise, we will kind of get going here. Anything else at all before we jump in? Any other thoughts, questions, anything? First slide of the semester. That makes me excited. I'm excited. Yeah, so again, what we'll do here is we'll talk a little bit about what is abnormality. We're going to talk about how abnormality was treated in the past, which is pretty shameful, but we'll get up to kind of where we are today, and then some current trends and jobs and what researchers do and different professions in the field as well. So this whole class is called abnormal psychology. And what we'll look at in here is abnormal behavior. And that's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today. What is abnormal behavior? What does abnormal mean? And we'll get to that here in a moment. But we're going to look at the scientific study of kind of describing, predicting, and explaining abnormal patterns of functioning. And in order to look at abnormal, we have to kind of define what is normal. And again, that's something that we'll spend a fair amount of time kind of looking at today, because it's very, very subjective. But we'll spend the first maybe 3 or 4 weeks kind of setting the stage. We'll talk about abnormality in the past, some models of abnormality, how do we assess people, and then the rest of the semester will be on the disorders. And so we'll look at all the major categories of disorders and the big ones in each one. And then we'll end with forensic psychology, which is also a really interesting field. I wish we had a forensic psych class here because it tends to be really popular and also really interesting. So again, the biggest part here is we're looking at abnormal behavior. And that is really, really subjective. And I think sometimes, just as kind of a way to start thinking about this, when we're trying to decide what's normal versus abnormal, I think every now and then it can be helpful to look at some of the stereotypes that we have of mental illness. And one way to look at that is to watch somebody pretend that they have a mental illness. What are the things that they're doing to convey that they are mentally ill? And so I have a little video clip from you. It's kind of an older movie, but I think it's such a great example of somebody pretending to be mentally ill, just to start to kind of get a metric of what we tend to think that looks like. So this clip is from Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, where he is pretending.
Yeah, I don't think so. Make that far. I don't know what that is. Yeah.
I think that my class studies in 3 years transition changes.
I usually positively characterize the think that it was disruptive. So yes, I think. Sure.
Right now.
Yeah.
I
think he may have like a super rate. Also, like does it impact it?
Yeah, I would say
You didn't think hard.
It actually kind of the green.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's say, you know, like, surgery is like, you know, not the.
All right, and as a lot of you are doing, make sure to join so we can vote.
CTVs, situation, maybe distress if it was caused, if whatever he has causing the distress of last night.
You managed to interrupt.
Body, but I can't see just.
Yeah.
So, I'm saying, if you're gonna finish what I'm saying is, I see some of these points, but I'm not one of them, so I'm not certain.
So we'll vote on him in a minute, and then we can talk about it a little bit. There's no right or wrong answer here, so just whatever you think. But I'll let you all get joined here. You can have two choices: disorder, no disorder. And I don't know about you, but I hate forced choice between two things. Again, being a Gemini, it drives me nuts. But choose whichever one you're leaning toward: disorder or no disorder. And this one's not like there's no points awarded, so take your time. As soon as everyone is ready, we'll vote. We'll talk about him. And I wrote the code up here, just in case. Anyone need more time to join in? Are we ready? Almost, okay. Then after we vote on him, leave this open. Okay, we're gonna vote on a couple of other people, so don't close it out. Or if you do, you'll just have to rejoin, but. Okay, everyone good? Ready to go? Okay, so disorder, no disorder. All right, that's what the vote will be. The first one has a disorder, blue does not have a disorder. All right, so we're definitely leaning this way, but it's fairly split, right? So 19 of you said yes, or I'm sorry, said no, and 11 of you said yes. So why? Why did you vote the way that you did? Anyone want to share your thoughts as to why he has a disorder or doesn't have a disorder in your mind? Don't worry about which disorder, just your thoughts. Yeah. Oh, go here. No, go back.
I voted that he didn't. I saw some of the points of the 5Ds, but I didn't see all of them, at least not in ways that could be verified. So I don't think it's impossible. I didn't see enough conclusive ones.
Okay. Yeah, we did watch a very short clip too, right? We're just seeing a little snippet, but so no for you. Okay. Yeah.
What I was kind of curious about is that he says that it makes it easier for him.
Sure.
And his behavior seems to be based on some kind of like Native American supernatural belief. And I was kind of curious as to how this might, as to how it might be possible to draw parallels between other behaviors that are based on supernatural beliefs, maybe religion.
Sure.
Because some people do pretty crazy things with they disorder. And
Right.
it's just really is a gray area.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing to start thinking about, right? Like religion is a culture that a lot of people belong to, right? He's talking about a culture that he identifies with, right? And people can definitely get very like carried away in their beliefs that relate to a culture. I love that. Yeah. Sure.
No, maybe she was just going through something in her head.
Sure.
Because she didn't seem really distressed or anything, much like this guy didn't seem that stressed about anything.
He doesn't.
Seems very happy and complacent.
Yeah.
Like, what is the line between religious norms and just, not mentally being in pain?
Yeah.
So that's why drawing the plan to join Artisan is that's why I did that. If it's a religious thing that makes him happy.
Mm-hmm. So which way did you vote?
I voted for.
No, okay. Other thoughts? Again, there's no right or wrong here. Yeah.
I wouldn't defensive for budget experience.
Okay.
I think it makes it clear that he's really speaking, that makes it feel. I don't know if this is kind of like involving argument, but he's definitely pretty suicide.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, there was definitely, that one was like, so maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, you knew that little piece of information, right? I was gonna reveal that in a moment, so fantastic that you knew, right? And that might change the way that you vote, right? Like if you knew that piece of information before, that might kind of push you, because that tends to make me think he had a little more distress. A lot of people saying, well, he seems pretty like happy. But he did ultimately take his life, and we don't know why, right? He's not here, we can't ask him, but he did ultimately take his own life, right? Yeah.
I feel like that could also be because you said we don't know why, so.
Right, we don't. No idea.
I think that like that could be because of the pushback we got from society. And
Yeah.
also it wasn't enough, like, he said it wasn't enough, and I don't know what he meant by that, but maybe it wasn't enough for him. Like maybe he saw, like, it seemed like he had a very strong connection to like tigers or like felines, and maybe his physical, he felt like his soul was connected to them, but his
Sure.
physical appearance couldn't be. And he's always pushing the envelope, but it just wasn't enough with modern science. And this might be like a little bit of a controversial relation, but I feel like it can be related to like, I guess like transgenderism in
Yeah.
our society.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who are against the trans movement and against trans people are like, oh, well, they transitioned when they killed themselves. Well, maybe that's because it wasn't enough, and they still like they transitioned from a man to a woman and still didn't feel enough like a woman because like people didn't treat them like a woman.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not because they transitioned, but because they weren't able to like transition enough physically or societally
To feel like they could fit in and be accepted. And yes, so it could be that he was intrinsically unhappy, or it could be that he struggled with the reactions of people around him in the world extrinsically. There's a lot of parallels. We could draw parallels to religion, like you had brought up, draw parallels to being transgendered or transsexual. There's a lot of parallels to like getting tattoos and body piercings. Like a lot of people get those things. Where do we draw the line between like, oh, it's just a tattoo versus it's something more, right? A lot of interesting pieces with this guy. I mean, let's be honest, right? If you were walking down Raider Walk, this long walkway here, after class and he walked by you, you'd probably do a double take, right? It's definitely deviant, right? It's definitely different than what's quote normal, right? He doesn't seem distressed, right? But again, we have that piece of the suicidality, which makes you wonder, right? The dysfunction and the danger. I mean, the procedures can be dangerous, but so can any kind of tattoo or piercing, or a lot of the things that a lot of us do can be dangerous, right? There's dangers to drinking coffee, which I do every morning, right? So it's very difficult to know. Yeah.
Because he knows he's being filmed,
Mhm.
and he's obviously trying to portray something that,
Sure.
he wants people to think that's normal for him and that he's comfortable with. But it's like, how long is it? 5 seconds or 5 minutes?
Right.
We don't really know.
We don't.
We don't spend time, we don't know what he is, aside from cameras and aside.
Yeah.
And alone, like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough information to have decide.
For sure. Right. We got a very short little like snippet of his life. And I'm going to give you even briefer than that. So what I'm going to hand out to you here, and thank you so much for like the wonderful thoughts on him. Again, we don't know, or you could argue either way. That's kind of the point, right? And we're going to drive that home a little bit more. So what I have for you here are 4 little different scenarios with just a paragraph each. You're not turning this in, but I do want you to kind of, as a group, decide. And then we'll vote on each one of them and we can talk about them really briefly. I'm going to hand this out, and with your group that you were just with, read through them. I have enough for each of you to have them. Do you think they have a disorder or not? And in my opinion, there's only one on here that's kind of obvious, and the rest of them are very much up for debate. And if you don't agree as a group, that's totally fine. We're going to vote on it, so you don't have to agree. But definitely talk about it a little bit. Yeah, so I'll give you a few minutes, read through it, decide. Don't overthink it too much. Don't worry about which disorder. We haven't talked about them yet. I got a U in paper passing in 5th grade. And it stuck with me all these years. Every time I go to hand out papers, I'm like, I can't get them apart. It's that U. I had a teacher who didn't like me because I had short hair, so she gave me a U and said I was a bad paper passer. I'm like, that's so, it's stuck, it's been like 30 years and I still remember it. What was that?
We should sneak in her house and shave her head.
I love that idea. Or did everyone go in?
Okay.
Okay. You wanna pass them up, I can grab them. So, with your same group, thank you. Go ahead and go through each one of them. What do you think? And then leave up the Kahoot. We'll vote on it in a few minutes. And again, after you finish reading them, chat about it with your group. We'll give you a few minutes to talk about it and then we'll vote and talk together.
You know, you can get it where you're not doing it without feeling compulsion for inaction. Inspiration, yeah. Just for too long. Because in our area, like that, it's like me, exactly that.
Yeah.
Anything from the portal, but it's never been stretched. You know, not being able to open, but I think it's like we do our area, but the other. It's not a correct file. It's not like.
It's one of my.
Yeah. So talk about the depression. Yeah, I was talking to her husband. She did well, made us friends.
I know. Like after he got weird with like
Probation, I would like to know what's the thing on probation for, but. There's many people who want to be. Yeah. Most have. But I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and number 4.
yeah, it's like
Well, I didn't agree. You have to. I didn't want to have to.
All right, like one more, then we'll vote on it, 1 more minute.
I feel, you know. Like they would do, I think what I would say, like. Like they would have to stress, like. Put on a football without racially. I can say that you can put on for life.
Yeah.
He's not.
So it works in summer again, but what to do? Just stress, play with the kids. It's fine, I think. Wow, I
It doesn't really.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it had to divided. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so science like.
All right, let's talk about these folks together. I want to vote on each one. So we'll skip to Andrew here in a second. Same thing, has a disorder, doesn't have a disorder. And again, you don't have to agree with your group, whatever you think. And here's the Kahoot code if you got booted out. But let's vote on Andrew. In my opinion, Andrew is the most clear cut on here. We'll see what you think. All right, so here we go. So here's Andrew. Has a disorder, doesn't have. That was fast. Okay, so 28 of you said yes, and 1 person said no, right? And that tends to be pretty like consistent with what I see. So why do you think he has a disorder? Most of you said he has a disorder. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
The phrase, he appears to feel no guilt about this behavior.
Yeah, red flag, right? All I can think of the little TikTok guy who runs with the red flag. You've ever seen that? Like, red flag, right? Red flag for sure. Anybody else? Why he has a disorder? Yeah.
He has multiple symptoms of deviance and loss of function.
Yeah, right. Definitely got a lot of those things going on. Any other thoughts with him? Yeah.
The only thing that would dissuade me was when he says that he feels no distress, but that's also probably the most unreliable because it is coming
Yeah.
from him. So in my case, because the one thing that would dissuade me from thinking so comes from a relatively unreliable and very much biased source.
Yeah, most of the time when you don't feel distressed with things, that's a good thing, right? But in his case, it feels like a bad thing, right? Like it probably should stress him out a little bit more, maybe not the most reliable source there. Yeah,
Seems like a long time in repeat offender.
yeah,
And then. Yeah, guilt and like distress are really reliable, and specifically in this instance, because a lack of guilt and distress are like always for people with sociopathy and psychopathy.
yeah.
So it's. Yeah,
Yeah, and if I had to diagnose Andrew, I would put him as antisocial personality disorder, commonly known as like being a sociopath or a psychopath. That no guilt thing is a big red flag, right? For that specifically. Now, sometimes people will say like, more of a product of circumstance, and that might maybe come up in him on the like no side. But I think Andrew is probably the easiest one on here. And then it gets kind of gray, right? And most of the time, mental illness is very gray. Right, it can be difficult to tell. So let's vote on Barbara. Barbara's my favorite to vote on. I used to make people raise their hand, but no one would ever want to raise their hand on Barbara. So let's go with Barbara here. Has a disorder, doesn't have a disorder. All right, a little more split. Okay, most of you said no. A few people said yes. Thoughts on Barbara? What do we think? What's going on with Barbara? What do we think? Yeah. Yeah. So which way did you vote? Okay. Which way did you vote?
Does not have psych.
Yeah, right. Maybe PMS, right? Anyone think maybe that might be the case? I remember when I was a kid, my dad said, there's gonna be like a week out of the month where your mom's not herself. I was like, what does that mean? As a kid, I was like, what's gonna happen to mom? And I was like, I remember being so scared. Like, she didn't do something, right? She just don't look her in the eye. Oh, okay. But like, yeah, I mean, it might just be PMS where it's related to a menstrual cycle. Other thoughts with her? Yeah. It could be. Yeah, so PMS, totally normal. A lot of women experience PMS. But there is something called PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is where people experience such extreme depression that it's actually categorized as needing treatment because it interferes with their life in some way. So it could be that it escalates to that. Any other thoughts with her? I tend to kind of lean toward it's like normal, but it could escalate. Like maybe we need to keep an eye on it. A lot of people might show warning signs of disorders, but they don't necessarily have it yet, or it's not enough. Anything else with Barbara? Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking, because I voted no after a question mark,
Yeah.
and. 'Cause I don't have a period, so I can't relate that to my experience.
Mhm.
But I was like, I don't know if I know enough about disorders to think this seems like there can be some added stress there.
Sure.
And I don't know if I know enough about disorders to be like going into this next year.
Yeah.
It was interesting about that.
It'd be interesting to go back at the end and vote on them at the end of the class, right? I wonder if it'd be different. I just had that thought, but yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to say. Again, we're getting this much information about them, right? So it might be that we need to like keep an eye on her and see if it escalates, or it could just be normal PMS. Let's go to the next one. Diane, let's vote on Diane. Has a disorder, doesn't have it? You said no, or you said no. Any thoughts on Diane? What do we think about her? Yeah, go back there in the room.
No, but I keep bouncing back and forth in my
Sure.
head, because it just sounds like a good old case of situational depression.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but we all kind of sometimes get that, but it seems a little more severe.
Okay.
I mean, the eating habits have changed, which seems to be based on the sleeping habits have changed, and then our fundamental survival, like, methods tend to get changed. We tend to not be doing.
Yeah. Right. I imagine a lot of you, maybe with this one and the next one, had like I'm not sure, right? It's such a like kind of in the middle. Yeah. What did you think?
I was one of the ones that said yes, and my reasoning for that, I mean, she's got the sleep disturbance and the increase in appetite, which are clearly depression symptoms. The duration isn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
Said it's only been 3 months. But she is now alone, working a job she doesn't like. Gaining weight and not getting enough sleep, and those conditions are kind of the beginning of a downward spiral that's
Yeah.
only going to increase the depression over time. So I just didn't see anything that's gonna pull her out of that downward spiral unless there's like some treatment or other intervention. So
Okay,
that's why I said, yeah, just that seemed a little bit like the beginning of a more serious downward spiral.
sure, great points. You had your hand up too, right? Did you have a thought?
Like, I'm gonna be real, like, it seems like it's just like a shitty hand, that's.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
you know, it could go down the route of, moving towards depression, but it kind of seems like everyone has shitty parts of their life. And excuse my language, sorry.
Okay.
But, it just seems like she has a lot of stuff going on. And it seems like previously she made it to college, she's a strong person, she might not end up getting through this.
Yeah, right. And I heard a couple of people saying it, but it seems reasonable to react that way, right? Like, and I think it's important to ask yourself that with anything. What is a reasonable response to the life events that you're having, right? It is a shitty hand. You said it. It's true, right? I'm like, I felt bad for saying it, but it's true, right? She has some crappy stuff happen to her and she reacts to it. Now, is it depression or is it not? Like, it could go either way. But like, part of me says, like, what would you expect? Like, what is normal? If you have someone, like, cheat on you and you lose relationships and you lose these things, I would expect you to. If you have someone in your life that you care about pass away, you're going to have a grieving period. That's normal. It'd be abnormal if you didn't react, right? But at what point does it transition to a disorder? It's where it starts to get gray. And again, just not to beat it over the head here, but like, that's the point, is it's not always as clear as I think we want it to be.
So I voted a very tentatively, I think she does,
Sure.
because of a similar reason, I can see behaviors that are self-destructive that might lead to something.
Yeah.
And because there are like a much more serious instance being PTSD, where that is a disorder, but it is an understandable response to a very severe happening that simply changes your brain through no fault of your own.
Right.
And so I could see the start of that, but it also, like was mentioned, the duration isn't there enough to say definitively.
Yeah, right on that line, right? Question mark, right? And just so we don't run out of time, let's vote on Eric, because Eric is very similar idea here. But let's see what you come up with. For Eric. Okay, and I kind of expected that, right? And that's what I would normally kind of see. So Eric, like Diane, I had to check, I forgot her name, random made up people, right? Eric, has a couple of things that are a little bit different, but they both were dealt really lousy life circumstances. What is it that tips so many of you over here with Eric? Yeah. Yeah, the suicidality, right? Suicidality is not a disorder, but it is a big flag, right? When people are suicidal, but that oftentimes makes us more worried about them. And it kind of indicates a level of severity that's higher than maybe like Diane, for example. So that's relatively common to see here, right? He has kind of a normal, typical response, but his response is a little more severe than we saw with Diane. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of psychological disorders that are bred from trauma.
Sure.
I feel like losing your legs.
Yeah.
A lot of trauma in someone's life who's so used to being active, working on a farm, doing everything day to day, like
Totally.
Then just immediately losing that and having to transition into a really different lifestyle.
Yeah.
I feel like, trauma is like them, being depressed, wanting to kill himself.
Yeah. If you lost a leg or an arm, and if you lost a limb or your ability to do something, I would say it's completely normal for you to have the thought of like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I don't want to live anymore. I wouldn't say that's abnormal, but to start talking about like having a plan or like the severity of the thought is what makes me a little more worried. I'd be more worried about him than I would about Diane. Right. And so again, my point with all of this, and I love so much, thank you so much for all the wonderful thoughts and discussion on them, is that disorders are very rarely black and white and clear. Right? Sometimes it's like, oh, that's obvious, right? But other times it's very subtle. And we're going to talk about the specific disorders and criteria all semester. You can close the Kahoot now at this point. But the APA has this statement that they released, right, that kind of defining what a mental illness is, and it's just as gray as anything else, right? And so when it comes to what is a mental illness and what is normal versus abnormal, it's very subjective. What's normal to me might not be normal to you. What's normal today might not be normal tomorrow, right? I think COVID was a great example of that. What was normal one day wasn't the next, right? All of a sudden, and things are very different now than they were 3 years ago, right? And so things are constant, or 4 years, sorry, it's 2024 now. Things are constantly changing, and normality is not an easy thing to define. But it is something that we'll talk about all semester one, right? What are the criteria and so on. So let me see this quickly, and then I'll collect those index cards from you, and we'll call it a day. Just a quick reminder, again, there's school Monday, so have a nice restful weekend, recovering from the long week, and then I'll see you on Wednesday. We'll keep going with chapter 1. But let me get through this really quickly, and then we can call it a day. And if I mess up your name again, please continue to correct me. And if you're not on here, again, check in with me. Lena, Annika, here, Haley, Sydney, Ike,
Here.
John, Audrey, Teddy, Bradley, Christopher,
Here.
Justin,
Here.
Clarissa, Sophia, Diana, Lindsay, Ella, Sophia, Cynthia, Shay, Sophia, Emerson, Luke,
Here.
Jane,
Here.
Naraj,
Here.
Clay.
Yeah.
Okay. Danny, Micah,
Here.
Elijah,
Yeah.
Darren,
Here.
Allie, Naomi, Candy, Kaden, Ida, and Nick. Okay, if I didn't call your name, come check in with me. Otherwise, have a wonderful long weekend. Don't forget to turn in your cards. I have a stapler up here to be, if you need it. And I'll see you all on Wednesday. Oh, and I have candy if you want any of the cahoots. Come grab a piece of candy for me. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
What's up?
So my name isn't on the list.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's because